nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Hello there, it's 6 o'clock. I'm Michelle Dewberry and this is Dewbs & Co, the show where we'll get into everything that has got you talking today. And wow, there you go. We know the answer now because it's been wall-to-wall speculation, hasn't it? And now Boris Johnson has spoken. Christmas is not cancelled. Bad luck if you were hoping to use that as an excuse to avoid your in-laws this year. And not that I want to pry, but let me ask you, are you on antidepressants? I ask because England has one of the highest rates of their use in the world. And now, doctors have been told to stop dishing them out because according to a new study at least, the side effects can be disproportionate to the benefits. So are we too dependent on happy pills for our happiness? And whatever happened to what I would have called a basic, simple, common sense thought that acting is literally playing somebody that you're not? How has that concept even become remotely controversial? I ask because another row has been sparked by, you guessed it, someone playing someone that they're not. A Spaniard cast as a Cuban, to be precise, but the debate has gone much wider than that. Are people just looking for reasons to be offended? And you won't want to miss the end of this show because I'm going to be giving you details of what I think is the best job vacancy around at the moment. Got to be honest, even I'm tempted to be applying. I'll have all of that to come. But first, let's have a look at the latest news headlines.
Good afternoon, I'm Polly Middlehurst. The Prime Minister has confirmed there won't be any further COVID measures implemented in England before Christmas. Boris Johnson also warned the situation was, though, finely balanced and that restrictions could be implemented after the Christmas period. Mr Johnson said there's currently not enough evidence on the severity of the Omicron variant, the hospitalisation rate or the impact of the booster rollout to justify tougher measures just yet.
What I can say tonight is that naturally we can't rule out any further measures after Christmas, and we're going to keep a constant eye on the data. We'll do whatever it takes to protect public health. But in view of the continuing uncertainty about several things, severity of Omicron, uncertainty about the hospitalisation rate or the impact of the vaccine rollout and the boosters, we don't think today that there is enough evidence to justify any tougher measures before Christmas.
Boris Johnson. Well, what's happening in Scotland? Nicola Sturgeon, the First Minister there, has announced that from Boxing Day, all outdoor events will be limited to just 500 people. That's going to be for a period of 3 weeks to help slow down the spread of the Omicron variant there. Nicola Sturgeon also confirmed that means the cancellation of Edinburgh's world-famous Hogmanay Street party at New Year, adding that football matches will become effectively spectator-free. The restrictions won't apply to private events such as weddings. Nicola Sturgeon also stressed that advice for Christmas Day still stands, but family gatherings should be kept as small and as safe as possible.
At a time when these services are already under severe pressure and also dealing with high staff absences, limiting large-scale events will help them focus on delivering essential services to the public. So I would ask the public, despite the disappointment I know this decision will generate, to please understand the reasons for it.
Nicola Sturgeon. Well, £1 billion is being made available by the Treasury to support businesses most impacted by the Omicron variant across the UK. The funds include £6,000 grants for hospitality and leisure firms in England. The government will also cover statutory sick pay for those who test positive or have to self-isolate. And £30 million will be added to the Culture Recovery Fund to help museums and theatres in England. However, some industry leaders have criticised the funding as inadequate, and Labour have welcomed the measures but said they should have been introduced earlier. Away from COVID, the man charged with fatally stabbing the Conservative MP Sir David Amess and terrorism has pleaded not guilty in court. Sir David was killed during a constituency surgery in Essex in October. 25-year-old Ali Al-Harbi is charged with his murder and with preparing acts of terrorism between May 2019 and September of this year. A full trial is expected to be held in March. Dubai's ruler has been ordered to pay £554 million to settle a custody battle with his ex-wife over their 2 children. Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Maktoum will have to pay the largest sum to ever be granted by a UK court in such a case. The High Court judge ruled the bulk of the payout is for the children's education and lifetime security and to address the grave risk posed to them by their father. £251 million will be paid to his ex-wife for the upkeep of her British homes and for her future security. Metropolitan Police have released CCTV images of a missing student called Harvey Parker. The 20-year-old was last seen outside the Heaven nightclub in London in the early hours of Friday. His family hasn't heard from him since. Police are appealing to anyone who may have seen Harvey on the night of his disappearance to come forward. Now, Big Ben will chime at last on New Year's Eve with all the faces of the famous clock tower on display for the first time in 4 years. The Elizabeth Tower and the bell mechanism at the Houses of Parliament have all undergone the biggest restoration project in their 160-year existence. The bell will be struck 12 times to mark the start of 2022. Works to Big Ben and its tower are due to be completed in the spring. That's a full roundup of the news for you. Now let's get back to Michelle.
Thanks for that, Polly. Well, keeping me company tonight, my panel, Nigel Nelson, who's the political editor of The Sunday People, Joanna Williams, who's the author and academic, and Peter Edwards, the former editor of The Labour List. Good evening to you three. Our last time together before Christmas. Can't believe that we're almost on the big day. Also, you know the drill as well. It's not just about us and our thoughts. It's about you and yours. If it matters to you, it matters to me. Get in touch with me and tell me what you're thinking right now. You can email gbviews@gbnews.uk or you can tweet me at Michelle Dewbs or at GBNews. Now, let's get straight into the latest on the coronavirus situation because Prime Minister Boris Johnson has ruled out further COVID restrictions before Christmas. He said, as you would have heard in the bulletin there, that there's not currently enough evidence of the severity of Omicron, the hospitalisation rates, and the impact of the booster rollout to justify those tougher measures before Christmas. And there is a little bit of but, of course, Boris Johnson says we can't rule out any further measures after Christmas. So joining us in the studio to go through that with us is political editor Darren McCaffrey. Good evening, Darren. That's the big but there, isn't it, at the end? Talk us through the announcement today and what do you reckon? Are we going to get restrictions straight after Christmas or not?
Well, we're going to have to wait and see on that one. I think listening to what the Prime Minister had to say today, and indeed yesterday, the tone may well suggest that that is where England is heading to. I think the significance of today is that clearly there are millions of people across England who are looking at uncertainty in the days ahead, fearful that Christmas could be cancelled for the second time round. Now, that's clearly not now going to happen. It is something that Nicola Sturgeon in Scotland had ruled out as early as last week. Now, the government's official position is that they reckon there is not enough evidence when it comes to the data on all of this, the numbers around hospitalisations, the potential severity of this new variant are not there, and that's why they're holding off that decision. That will, of course, as I say, be welcome news to many families up and down the country, but of course, all decisions have consequences. And for some of the scientists, Michelle, this is worrying news. We heard from Sage last week, and indeed from others over the last couple of days, saying that the government needs to act now with restrictions, that if we wait for the data, it may well be too late, that too many people will have been infected across England. In saying that, I'm not an epidemiologist, and it's really difficult to judge these things, but we have 90,000 cases across the UK today. That is an extraordinarily high number. There is no doubt that this virus is very transmissible, but it doesn't seem to suggest, as Chris Whitty was last week, that this is now doubling every 2 days, simply because the numbers aren't matching that prediction. Maybe in part because people, particularly here in London, but in other parts of the country, have curbed their actions over the last week or so, not socialising as much as they normally would do in the run-up to Christmas. In saying that, the hospital data out of London, and we keep referring to London because, of course, it has been the epicentre of the outbreak to date. 41% hospitalisations are up in the last week. That is a dramatic rise, up 41%. Those on ventilators are only up 4%, which again may suggest, and I say may suggest, that while lots of people may end up in hospital, it might be not as severe as we thought. So this is all going to play into, as you say, that decision that the Prime Minister is going to have to make immediately after Christmas about whether there is the need for further restrictions. In many regards, I think it was almost impossible for him to bring in restrictions before Christmas in England, given the mood of the Conservative Party.
And just help us understand, Darren, what is the process that would need to be followed if there was indeed further restrictions? I'll give you an example. One of my best friends is getting married on the 29th. I've immediately got a text straight away from her saying, what does today mean? What's going to happen next? What is the process if indeed there are further restrictions?
Well, unfortunately for her, and indeed for others that may have plans for the New Year's and into January, it is continued uncertainty, but we are in the middle of a pandemic and these things do change. In terms of the process, up until now, actually, the government have pretty much just announced things using emergency powers and their ability to do so, and then have retrospectively got Parliament to agree to them, which Parliament has done, most recently, of course, only with Labour support. But the Prime Minister, in order to try and quell that rebellion last week, not that it really worked, insisted that any new restrictions would only be brought in with the consent of Parliament. So that means that if Boris Johnson is looking at new restrictions in the new year, he's going to have to get Cabinet to agree. They couldn't agree this week. And he's going to have to get Parliament to agree. And that's one of the real difficulties now for the Prime Minister, is that he cannot guarantee the Conservative MPs are going to march through the lobby behind him for further restrictions, depending what those restrictions are and the necessity for them. And so I suspect that if we are going to see restrictions, Parliament will have to be recalled potentially as early as next week. But there is uncertainty about whether, as I say, government MPs will back what Boris Johnson wants. I suspect it will come down to just how bad the data is. And we know that Chris Whitty tonight, the UK's Chief Medical Officer, is having a meeting with MPs to explain what the data looks like at the moment. But in the end, all we can say as of now is up until Christmas Day, there will be no further restrictions. Beyond that, it really is, frankly, and it's unfortunate to say it, but it really is anyone's guess.
Darren McCaffrey, thanks very much. Nigel Nelson, your thoughts?
Well, Boris Johnson promised us he would follow the science, and the scientists say that we should be bringing restrictions in now, not later. So he's not doing that. So what all this is a political trade-off. It's a political trade-off with a sceptical cabinet, his rebellious backbenchers, and to an extent the British public. And a lot of people will be delighted to know their Christmas plans are intact. But also on top of that, we've got to think about the other trade-off is, by January, we could be in a situation where we need restrictions which are harsher and longer than they would have been had they been brought in earlier. And the other problem for him, which in fact the Welsh government and the Scottish government haven't fallen into, is he's not giving us any indication of what it's going to look like in the new year. So if you are in the hospitality industry, how do you know what drink to get in, what food to buy? Will there be a New Year celebration? We don't know. You have a friend getting married who doesn't know if they can go ahead. I've got a colleague who gets married next Friday. She doesn't know whether she can go ahead. So we're still lacking that certainty which industry and ordinary people have been demanding.
Peter?
Well, I think this is a case of restrictions delayed rather than restrictions avoided. It seems highly likely they'll come after Christmas, whether it's December 28th or slightly later. I think the other thing that comes out of today, and this is what Darren alluded to, he can't say it as bluntly, is it's not Boris Johnson running the COVID response anymore. It's the Tory backbenchers running the COVID response. We know Boris couldn't get more pre-Christmas restrictions through Parliament, through his own party. But it's a worry to me, as someone who's perhaps centre-left certainly, but I call myself moderate, that it's Tory backbenchers dictating the response and they're not representative of public opinion.
Would you agree with that, Joanna?
Well, I'm delighted that the Tory backbenchers have stepped in, and to me, that's called democracy, and this is what I voted for, and I don't think it should be down to one person, the Prime Minister. We don't live in a dictatorship, and I'm really sorry if that comes as a shock to people, but we do not live in a dictatorship. We do not have a king, Boris Johnson, who rules by diktat and decree.
Oh, God, don't give anyone any ideas, Joanna.
No matter how many scientists he might be speaking on behalf of. And I, for one, am utterly delighted that Boris Johnson is not a dictator and doesn't rule by decree, and it's not on his whim or his say-so, whether Christmas is cancelled or is going ahead at 4 days' notice. So, Nigel, I guess I'm one of the people who's delighted that my Christmas plans are going ahead, but I'm kind of reluctant to be delighted because I think we need to take a step back. And if we were to put ourselves in the frame of mind of just 2 years ago, the idea, like I say, that we wait at 4 days' notice to hear whether our Christmas plans can go ahead or not would have absolutely shocked and appalled people just 2 years ago. But the problem is we've been so messed about, so used to having our freedoms taken away from us at just a moment's notice, that we have got kind of pleased that at 4 days' notice we learn our Christmas plans can go ahead. But this is not good enough. It does mean that, I don't know whether I'm going to now go and see my parents-in-law in the period between Christmas and New Year. As you say, Nigel, pubs don't know whether to order in food or drink. This is ridiculous. We're living on this kind of tenterhooks.
When you say you don't know whether to go see your parents between Christmas and New Year, is that because whether you go see them or not would be dictated to by whether or not Boris Johnson says you can?
No, sorry, just to clarify that, absolutely not. No, unfortunately, my mother-in-law lives in a very small house, doesn't have a spare bedroom. We'd need a hotel. If it wasn't for that, I would just go and see her, because to me, family is very, very important. We're fully vaccinated. She's fully vaccinated. I want life to get back to normal. I would want to go and see my in-laws. Unfortunately, the practicalities of the situation mean we need a hotel, and if Boris Johnson announces that hotels and the hospitality sector's closed, that will put us in a very difficult situation, I'm sure, like lots of other people around the country. But no, as far as I'm concerned, personally, I'm going to do what the hell I like, because I'm sick to death of having my life dictated by these rules. I've done what I'm supposed to do in terms of getting vaccinated. We've been told now that we get vaccinated in order for life to get back to normal. If we lock down now, what is to say we will not be in this exact same position this time next year? We're locking down not on the basis of evidence, but on the basis of what might happen. And if we're going to have preemptive lockdowns on the basis of the NHS might become overwhelmed, then we will be doing this every single year.
The vaccine should be, if you can believe Chris Whitty and Patrick Vallance, that the vaccines will keep improving. So we'll get to the situation, hopefully by next year, whereby you'll only need one vaccine which will deal with all the variants, and it'll be a bit like having your flu vaccine. So that's how we'll end up living with COVID. Now, obviously, I don't know if that'll happen. I'm not a scientist, but that is what they're telling us.
But you said that, Nigel, but I was told that before I went to get my first vaccine. I was told that before I went to get my second vaccine, and I was told that before I booked my booster shot. Excuse me, forgive me if I'm a bit cynical about this, because I've heard it so often.
I'm not making any promises.
There's just the goalposts we've seen over the past 2 years. What happened to 3 weeks to flatten the sombrero or whatever it was?
Those were the days.
That was 2 years ago. The goalposts have shifted continuously. And like I say, my biggest fear is we are now shifting into preemptive lockdowns. Now, that is absolutely unprecedented. Locking down without any evidence of hospitals being overwhelmed. We're locking down we're proposing locking down for what might happen or what could happen.
You're formulating against so many things, it makes no sense. So on lockdowns, just on that one narrow issue, would you prefer to lock down or have restrictions before hospitals are overwhelmed, or wait till your local hospital is overwhelmed and then have a lockdown when it's overwhelmed, the staff can't cope and there's more people dead? Either before or after, which is your choice?
Well, my choice would be that we'd actually spent the past 2 years making an NHS...
No, that's not the question I asked.
Well, I'm sorry, you don't get to ask the questions.
But
You're
you don't
not
answer
the
them.
person in... I'm not answering that question because
Okay.
I think it's a really stupid question. I don't think that should be the decision that's facing the country.
But
I
you
think we should have
imply-
got the NHS sorted out so that we can cope with an annual blip. The fact is, every single year of my life, of my living memory, we've had newspaper articles out at the beginning of December saying the NHS will be
Is in a winter
overwhelmed.
crisis. See, I've got to say, because I am, it won't surprise you to know that I'm in your camp, Joanna, but I do think that Peter has got a point, because the problem that we have is, if we are to believe some of the statistics, and of course people can obviously take data and use it to tell a story, whatever that story is that they want us to hear. But if indeed we end up in a situation where the hospitals are chocker, then whilst I agree with you, yes, I would like an NHS that is actually fit for purpose, that has capacity, that can deal with what is presented to it. If we're not in that position, we're not in that position. And I think that's the point you're getting at, isn't it, Peter?
Well,
you deal with the now.
Yeah, sorry, I don't mean to keep interrupting, but just to be brief, do you either have restrictions before hospital is overwhelmed, or you wait for them to become overwhelmed, nurses to be knackered and sick, more people dead, and then have restrictions? It's simple, before or after.
I think we've got to recognise that one of the reasons why the NHS is in crisis point right now is because we locked down for the past year and a half. We delayed a lot of minor surgeries, we delayed even a lot of cancer referrals, cancer treatments. And so that tells me that actually lockdown is not what's best for the NHS.
But you did avoid an awful lot of illness and death. I mean, if you look at the graphs during lockdown, it's been the one thing that's been shown to actually reduce infection.
But Nigel, if we all just went away and locked ourselves in a padded cell and never left, that would completely reduce all
you were
pressure
calling
on
me
the
stupid
NHS.
and you use analogies like that.
I don't want to
locking
live my
ourselves in a
life.
padded
I don't
cell.
want to live my life
Let me
like
ask
that.
Nigel then, because Nigel, we have an absolute sheer obsession in this country at the moment, to the detriment, it seems to me, of everything else. The sole obsession and focus is protect the NHS
Yes.
from COVID overwhelmment.
Yes.
And is there a point where we say, right, OK, this obsession on COVID, when does this ease? Because all the while that we are laser focused, micro level in on COVID, we're overlooking the macro level, which is lockdowns have harms associated to them. They do cause additional deaths in places that they really didn't need to be those deaths. They decimate businesses and the economy. They decimate mental health, child's education, all of those kind of things. And when you're micro leveled in at COVID, you're missing that, not you, but we as a collective are missing that bigger picture.
But you're absolutely right that the absolute priority has been to protect the National Health Service. That was the priority right from the beginning of COVID. It is now. And the reason is, if the NHS gets overwhelmed, it's game up. Everything else falls apart completely. So businesses won't recover, kids won't be able to go back to school. Everything relies on the NHS being able to cope with the cases they get. So it's not even about deaths or the number of people who get ill. It is purely about making sure that the NHS can survive. And this is the point I think Peter was making. You have to make a fine judgment about whether you do it as a precaution or you gamble with the NHS, which is what's basically going on now, and say, well, we haven't got enough data, we don't know it's going to be that bad, let's hope for the best. Because broadly, that's where we stand at the moment. We're hoping for the best.
Well, what needs to come off the back of this? Because, I mean, who only knows? We don't know what's going to happen over the next coming weeks. But there has to be a proper, serious conversation about the NHS at the end of all of this stuff, because the NHS is almost like a religion to so many people. And if you even dare suggests that it needs reform. People get so offended. It became a political football for all parties. It's always been this political thing that you need to, we will protect the NHS, we will love the NHS, we'll nurture the NHS. Well, no, actually, if the NHS is not fit for purpose, then it needs picking up and shaking up and putting back together in a way that actually serves the needs of its, I almost said customers.
Fit for purpose, then?
Do I think it's not fit for purpose? I think that what we're seeing right now...
Introduction.
Yeah, it wasn't just a part of it. I absolutely said it explicitly. No, I don't think that the NHS is currently fit for purpose. I think it's got fantastic facets in it. I think it's got fantastic people in it as well. I think it does some things very well and other things very badly. And I think that when people are overly protective of the NHS and don't even allow it to be criticised, they do nobody any favours.
No, we'd be surprised. I actually agree with you on this.
Well,
I think that
it'll need to lie down if you carry on.
I know, exactly. That the point about the NHS is we're still basically using a 1948 model for a 21st century health service. And so you cannot keep going on and saying we will have universal health care free at the point of use. It never has been, by the way. It was only ever free for 3 years of its existence.
It's not free. We pay national insurance, amongst other things.
Well, we don't. Yes, I mean, national insurance is just a tax. But the point is, yes, you do need to actually revamp the National Health Service completely to make it fit for the 21st century.
The fact is, over the course of the past year, we've seen a huge increase in excess deaths within the home. This is people dying from heart attack, stroke, cancer, people who would have normally gone to hospital who haven't gone to hospital. When the protect the NHS mantra becomes such that people are dying to save the NHS, then things have really gone too far. And I absolutely agree, Michelle, it's not fit for purpose. If we have to completely change the way we live our lives, i.e. lockdown potentially every year in order to protect the NHS should be protecting us. At the moment, we've done it completely the other way around, and that's absolutely wrong.
But it's all we've got at the moment, and so it is absolutely essential it doesn't get overwhelmed. I mean, I think the staff have been fantastic and
nobody wants
hugely
to be
overworked and so on. But I mean, what we can't allow to happen is for it to become overwhelmed now. And that is the constant kind of battle that...
But you do recognise, Nigel, you recognise what I'm saying, that we have this discussion every single year. There is not one year in my living memory when we haven't had headlines about the winter crisis in the NHS.
There's been a winter crisis, but not being overwhelmed. This is
it's the language of overwhelmed.
In the last 2 years, I think that's a very misleading comparison. I also, we've had a kind of global health crisis of the like not seen for centuries. I also think, Joanna, you're being... of course the NHS needs to be reformed, but I think you're being unduly negative about all these heroes and heroines who've done so much for the front line.
That's absolute rubbish. I'm sorry, Edward. That's actually...
I'm not called Edward.
Sorry, I beg your pardon.
You called me stupid earlier.
Sorry, that's actually offensive because I've said nothing whatsoever about the doctors and nurses who work in the NHS. When I say the NHS is not fit for purpose, what I mean is the institution, all the structures that go with it. I'm sure doctors and nurses are incredibly hardworking.
The people are the institution. The people make up
No. You see, I need to go to a break, and I'm getting told off because I do need to go to a break, but I can't go to a break without just pulling you up on this, Peter. This is this emotive response that you give. As soon as people criticise the NHS, you bring it about the people within them. My mum and my sister, I say this all the time, they are both NHS nurses. They work extremely hard and they work within the confines of the framework that surrounds them. So when people criticise the NHS, it's not about attacking the personnel, the people on the coalface that are working there. And I think that is an important distinction to make because I will be critical of the NHS if it needs to, but that's not about the individuals on the front line doing the work, and they are working incredibly hard. And the people that have been disrespectful to them, by the way, Peter, my final point, I would say people like Sajid Javid, who are getting them to work their bits and pieces off right now, and they're perfectly fine to work with people right now, but come April, they'll essentially be getting the boot from their frontline job if they choose to exercise their own personal choice and not have the vaccine. I think that is a disrespect of those people and the work that they are putting in right now. Anyway, I do have to go to a break. Email and let me know your thoughts, a variety of views there. Anyone speaking your language, anyone you agree with, anyone you disagree with, let me know, or what else it is that you're thinking. gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at Michelle Dewbs or at GBNews. When we come back, I'll be talking about a very cheery topic indeed, antidepressants. You won't want to miss that. We'll have that and more coming up, but first, the weather.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello again. Some brighter skies for some tomorrow before more cloud and rain arrives from the west. However, backtrack to this evening and high pressure still firmly in charge as it has been for the last week or so. And what that means, calm conditions and a cold night. But it is waning towards the near continent, allowing milder air to come from the west and also bands of rain. And we'll see that as we head through into Christmas Day. For the time being, though, it's cold outside. Holes in the cloud will allow temperatures to plummet. A fairly widespread frost anywhere from Scotland, England and some parts of Wales. Away from Northern Ireland and the West Country, a keen breeze here, more clouds and temperatures holding up. But certainly it's going to be a frosty start to the day come Wednesday morning across many areas, but with some hazy sunshine, so some brighter skies. Through the morning, though, that cloud will eventually bring some rain to Northern Ireland, quite a fresh wind across Irish Sea coast, as the rain slowly pushes up towards the western parts of Scotland, clipping West Wales as well as the West Country. Drier skies to end the day further east, but temperatures will struggle here, 4, 5, 6 degrees Celsius. And through the evening, as the rain pushes across Scotland, it will turn to snow above around 300-400 metres and even some sleetiness at lower levels for a time. As some showers move in across England and Wales, and then more wet weather returns to Northern Ireland through the latter part of Wednesday night and into Thursday morning. However, the key feature of the weather as we head through Thursday, yes, there'll be quite windy in places, outbreaks of rain, but the temperatures will be a few degrees higher, certainly feeling milder across England and Wales and Northern Ireland. Still a lot of rain, though, just grinding to a halt across Scotland, and a keen breeze across the far north as more rain pushes in across Wales and the West Country later, and also that brisk wind. Temperatures here, double figures though, so not so bad, although the air will slowly get colder from the north as we head into Christmas, with a chance of some snow showers in the northeast.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Join us for Political Correction. We're here every Sunday to correct politics and put you, the people, back in charge.
We talk about all areas of the United Kingdom, including Northern Ireland.
Our debate goes way beyond the Westminster Village. It's about the real country. It's about your opinion. So please, we want you to tell us what you think.
This is Political Correction.
Every Sunday morning from 10 a.m. here on GB News.
You're watching GB News live across the UK, the world and our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We're here for you. Don't forget to join our community by hitting the subscribe button.
And download the GB News app so you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you. Email us at gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
Hello there, welcome back to Dewbs and Kerr. You guys are getting in touch in your masses about that last topic. That has got you talking, I can tell you. Alex says anyone who thinks that the NHS is not overwhelmed has clearly not been to A&E recently or has tried to see a GP. Alex says the NHS, I'm telling you, is overwhelmed. We've just been talking about that, Alex, actually. Trying to get GPs appointments at the moment is nigh on impossible for many people, depending where you are. Kim says, I think all the people are being careful right now so that they can enjoy Christmas. They're just going to go crazy from the 26th onwards. Carl says, people should be taking every precaution to protect themselves. Stop being selfish and clogging up the NHS capacity for normal routine. Iris says, this is never going to end. Goldie says, this has all been a huge failure so far. Joan, this has to stop. Lift the restrictions and let businesses open as normal. John says, great show. Let's all hope that this Christmas is better than last year. And David says, oh, good God, 2 screeching women. Please calm them down or I'm going to switch you off. Well, I hope you're still there, David. Anyway, welcome back, as I said, to Dewbs and Kerr. Now, let's move on to a different topic. Doctors have been told to hand out fewer prescriptions of antidepressants and for shorter lengths of time after a review found that basically, there are considerable uncertainty around the benefits. England, for example, and this is a stat that really kind of caught my eye, England has one of the highest rates of antidepressant use in the world, with 1 in 6 estimated to be taking the pills. Bit of context, that's more than 79 million antidepressant drugs prescribed in England for 2021, and that is up from 43 million on the previous decade. As I said, there's a rising concern now about their overuse, the risk of withdrawal symptoms and side effects, and experts at University College London indicate that the side effects for many patients from the treatment might even be disproportionate to the benefits it gives them. Peter, I'll pick up with you on this, if I may. I've certainly had my challenges with my own mental health and my own experience, anecdotal though it may, and I've spoken to friends about this as well, is tablets were always, it felt to me, almost one of, if not the, first point of call for someone, in my experience, my friend's experience, going into a doctor saying that you're having challenges, you'd go through a questionnaire, and then the prescription would be pretty much the next step. And those stats there, England having some of the most highest use of antidepressants in the world, it makes me a little bit sad, really, that there's so many people that need or feel that they need that support.
Yeah, it's a sobering story. I should say it's great that you're being open about your own history, and I hope that gives some strength to anyone experiencing similar issues at home. I worry slightly about this story because it leads to very broad brush type headlines in the Telegraph. Antidepressants might be largely ineffective, study suggests. Well, it's one study, and I think we actually need a mental health system that copes with a range of conditions. So perhaps for mild depression, there could be more use of talking therapies. But for people in the grip of a crisis, a mental health crisis, I think they will need medication. And I worry, to be fair, I've not read the study, but from the media reports of it perhaps risks giving out a message of, hey, tablets don't work. And I actually think treatments for a spectrum of disorders are much more complex than that.
Yeah, Nigel, see, I think there used to be a lot of stigma about saying you had mental health problems, especially, I think, for men, especially, I think, for older men, because generationally just wasn't the done thing if you were challenging.
That's right.
So if you had challenges, you just kept an stiff upper lip, didn't you?
Well, I've never actually been depressed, but I have had mental health issues like you. I've been through talking therapies. I've been through different pills that can be addictive. What I would say is that advice from researchers is great, But the most important thing is that the GP, and this is where it warms back to the previous conversation, the GP needs more time.
Do you remember them, everyone?
Must actually match up the treatment with the patient. So everybody's an individual. You can't have a blanket kind of don't give these things out or do give those or give fewer. It depends on the individual patient and what you're dealing with. So if you're doing a talking therapy, it often only works if you match up with your therapist. That is, it's not a given that just by doing it that the whole thing will work. Certain pills will work for certain people, not for others. So it's very important that the GP knows the patient, knows what's best for them. And my worry about studies like this, when taken on their own, is it will encourage GPs not to do that. They will try and pull away from, say, pills or whatever, and that shouldn't happen.
Yeah, and Joanna, we talk about talking therapies, mindfulness, meditation, all those kind of things seem to be on the roster now, the menu, if you like, for treating these kind of symptoms, depressive symptoms. But the challenge is, it's all well and good having, say, talking therapies on a menu of options, but if a patient cannot access that talking therapy for, I don't know, say 6 months, and even then when you get it, you only get, say, I don't know, 4 sessions or whatever it is. I know it varies depending on where you are. That's not really much use to many people, is it?
Well, no, absolutely not. And as you say, we've already been talking about the problems just getting to see a GP in the first place in order to get a prescription. I mean, I agree with Nigel completely. I mean, ideally, on an individual level, people do need a mix of what's right for them in terms of talking or alternative types of therapy or antidepressants. And I certainly wouldn't want to either stigmatise antidepressants or suggest that there was a problem with them. But I think this broader topic really does raise some issues that we should be more concerned about, more worried about perhaps as a society. I mean, that idea that 1 in 6 people are being prescribed antidepressants, I mean, that suggests that this has become not just destigmatised, which we can all agree is a good thing, that we can be more open about discussing these issues perhaps, but actually it's become normalised, it's become routine. And I think that should actually raise a few alarm bells with us. Either it suggests that there is a tendency for over-prescribing, for just doling these things out whenever anyone comes along with any problem, or, you know, a much bigger problem, what's wrong with our society, what's wrong with our culture that's leading so many people to feel depressed, to feel as if they need this extra support. That's one thing that really concerns me. The other thing that comes out of this that really concerns me is this idea of people being almost parked on antidepressants. You know, in the research that's come out today, it's talking about people being on antidepressants for decades, you know, for 10, 20 years. And I think, you know, we really need to ask, this is where what you're saying, I think, really comes in, Nigel. To me, that's morally wrong, almost just to leave somebody on antidepressants for that length of time without properly pursuing with them whether there would be other sources of treatment that might actually help what's the cause of the problem, rather than just treating the symptoms.
How do you know that's not being done then?
Well, clearly we don't, but I don't think there's anything to be celebrated or anything positive in the fact that 1 in 6 people are on antidepressants.
It's 1 in 7. You're saying...
Well, actually, that's a good point, because you say it's 1 in 6.
I don't say it's 1 in 7, it says it here.
The point I was about to make is, according to the Telegraph, it's 1 in 7, and according to the Times, it's 1 in 6. I mean, we're splitting hairs, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, but it just goes to show that actually you can take this is what I always say about, you can take a statistic and use it to tell pretty much any story that you want, depending on how you present it. But the point is still, I mean, we've got people getting in touch here. Peter's been, not you, I suspect it's not you. Peter's been in touch saying, Michelle, I've been on antidepressants a couple of times in my life, and they've helped me out of the trouble mind I had at the time, helping me realise that my issues were circumstantial. In his experience, he said they worked in the short term, however, they wasn't the solution. Charles says doctors are too quick to prescribe antidepressants. And Andre says, Michelle, I think and feel that people want a shortcut to feeling better rather than understanding why it is there in the first place. And I think, you know, the thing with mental health, it's not it often gets described as just you've got depression, but you would never just say when it comes to your physical health, oh, you know, I'm ill, and then it's like one thing. Your mind is a very complex thing. It fires in all sorts of different ways and gets triggered by all sorts of different ways. And mental wellness is something that goes like this. And it's just because you're mentally well and strong today, something could happen tomorrow that could change the balance of many different things.
Which is why the treatments should change as that happens.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I have to say, in an ideal world, people would be able to access the menu of treatments available. And unfortunately, I think, and I suspect, and let me know what you think, I think often people struggle to do that, especially I hear a lot about CAMS, the teenage mental health services. Every time I talk about this, always a lot of criticism comes their way in terms of the accessibility and the waiting list for that. So get in touch and let me know your experience of all this. GBViews at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet me at Michelle Dewbs or at GBNews. Going to take a very quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking about this topic, acting. I mean, I've got to say, in my mind, acting is just you being someone that you're not. But a filmmaker says that casting only gay actors as gay characters is an empty gesture and a bad idea, and it's quite a strange debate, I have to say. I'll tell you where it started and where it went to after the break.
Coming up on Dan Wootton tonight, Breakfast TV legend and veteran journalist Anne Diamond drops by for a special announcement. Is a landmark victory against non-crime hate incidents enough to save free speech? New GB News host Darren Grimes, who fell victim to this chilling policy, weighs in. I'll reveal 2021's ultimate Greatest Britain and Union Jackass, and I break down the day's top stories with my superstar panel. The Conservative commentator Calvin Robinson, Daily Star columnist Dawn Neeson, and the social commentator Esther Kraku. That's Dan Wootton tonight from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. tonight on GB News.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews at gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Hello there, welcome back. Lots of you have been getting in touch with your experience and thoughts on mental health and antidepressants. Liz, I thought this was interesting. She says, Michelle, I've been on antidepressants for 20 years. Appointments for talking therapies have always been too long. I'm assessed once a year via a short questionnaire by my doctor. I have tried to wean myself off very slowly, but without success. You don't know who or what you are like without the tablets after this length of time. That says Liz. Rod says, Michelle, this is very simple. 28 days worth of tablets is £20 pound-ish. Therapy is £100 plus an hour. So what do you expect? I waited for 12 months for a referral on the NHS, gave up and went private. That says Rod. Yeah, I mean, I've got so many different examples coming in. I've got to be honest, it makes me quite sad that so many people feel the need for intervention. As if it's for what it's worth, I can tell anyone that's struggling right now. I struggled immensely with suicide ideation for over a decade, and touch wood and fingers crossed, I'm out the other side now. So if anyone is having a tough time, I promise you, whilst I know it won't feel like it right now, things can change and things do get better. So stick in there and don't give up and stay positive. Although I do appreciate that right now it can be quite hard to do that with the way things are, but I promise you things can get better. Anyway, let's move on to a different story. Aaron Sorkin, the filmmaker, has said that casting only gay actors as gay characters is an empty gesture and a bad idea. This has all come about after criticism of a Spanish actor, Javier Bardem, being cast as Cuban Desi Arnaz. You've got to love my pronunciations. I hope I've got that right. This is in his new movie, Being the Ricardos. Sorkin has said that nouns are not actable. Gay and straight are actable. You can act being attracted to someone, but you can't act gay or straight. So this notion that only gay actors should play gay characters, that only a Cuban actor should play Desi. Honestly, I think it's the mother of all empty gestures and a bad idea. Do you agree? I've got to say, Joanna, I find this whole conversation, and this isn't the first example of this kind of controversy about who's casting what role. It's certainly not going to be the last. When I was looking into this, I was printing out some examples of controversial casting. It went on and on and on. I think I've got about 9 pages of examples. To me, it's very simple. An actor is supposed to transform themselves into something that they are not. That is the point.
I agree with you completely, Michelle. And as you say, you know, we've seen numerous examples of this. It was only a couple of weeks ago we had Eddie Redmayne apologising for having played a transgender character in The Danish Girl. We've had Scarlett Johansson, again, a film that she was going to star in where she was also playing a transgender character has been pulled completely. And we see this coming up again and again. But yeah, I agree. I think the whole skill of acting is pretending to be someone you're not. If we're only allowed to ever represent people who we actually are, then we're not acting, we're just being ourselves on screen, and the whole point of fiction, of drama, is done away with. And I think it kind of puts the phrase that these identitarians use is stay in your lane, and you can't represent or be or speak on behalf of anyone other than yourself. But this is incredibly limiting of the human potential, of our imagination, of our creativity. It essentially says to us, you know, you cannot deign to speak on behalf of or be anyone else. Like I say, it just pulls the rug on the whole concept of acting and drama.
Yeah, no, I agree totally with Jo there. That I think that, I mean, you don't have to take drugs to play a drug addict, or you don't have to be a serial killer to play a murderer. So there's no reason why a straight man can't play a gay person. Equally, a gay actor can't play a straight one. Rock Hudson played straight roles all his life, and we know now that he was gay. You've got John Hurt, who was brilliant in The Naked Civil Servant. You can't imagine a better Quentin Crisp, and certainly Quentin Crisp couldn't imagine a better one, and he was straight. The only thing I would say is that I think that with the film industry, like everyone else, inclusion should play a part. So you choose the best actor for the role. However, if you've got 2 actors of equal ability, it may well be that you would err towards the gay actor if it was a gay part.
Peter?
Well, I think we all want gay people to be portrayed on screen with sensitivity, but this does seem a bit of a blunt instrument. And my question would be, in what other walk of life is it appropriate to, when you interview someone for a job, say, "Are you gay?" before giving them a job or not? You wouldn't do that in an office or a supermarket.
Well, they are doing it now a bit, yeah. I mean, those sort of things are coming in because of the inclusion agenda.
Yeah, you're not forced to disclose that. And some people may not wish to declare their sexuality.
No, that's right, yeah.
So I think this is a bit of a blunt instrument. And as we've all said, I think we come from different political backgrounds. But, you know, acting, the clue is in a word. It can involve portraying someone different to you.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm going to hold this moment because there's a very rare moment that we all agree. So I'm going to quit while I'm ahead. I will quit while I'm ahead. And I'm going to move on because I've seen a job vacancy. I'm interested, not going to lie. I think I might apply for it. So if you want it, you've got some stiff competition, at least from me. That is the fact, because the hunt is on to crown a king of the island. And this is it's a modern day society now, so if I want to self-identify as a king, I will. Anyway, this is Peel Island, a small bit of land off the coast of Cumbria, and it's searching for a person to run its local pub, the Ship Inn, and its island. Traditionally crowned the king of the Peel. I think it's Peel, is that Peel or Piel or?
I'm not sure on the pronunciation of that one.
I might say, well, PL sounds more regal, doesn't it? Anyway, he's looking for a king. This person will sit in an ancient chair, wear a helmet, he'll hold a sword while alcohol is poured over their head. This sounds absolutely fantastic, doesn't it? Would you move to a remote island to become a king or queen? Nigel, does it sound like the job for you?
Yeah, it is. I like the idea hugely. The only thing I think I'd like to do, if the locals would allow me, is to change the Ship Inn to the castle. On the basis I could be king of that.
Oh, well, I love it. You get to sit, and I'm going to repeat that again, you get to sit in an ancient chair, wearing a helmet, holding a sword, while alcohol is poured over your head. That sounds like a standard night out in Hull, I've got to be honest. Joanna, is it one for you?
Well, I find the sword and the alcohol appealing, but I have to say the remote island, I would last about 2 days. I mean, that's not me at all. I'm a townie, I'm afraid, through and through. I need to know about the shops and buses and trains and people.
But you'd have a pub. What more do you need in life? Peter, is it for you?
Probably not. Having lived in Cumbria on the mainland, where there is a sense of community, I think living in Cumbria but on an island that remote from everyone else would probably be a bit too much for me, so I would stick on mainland Britain.
Well, I've got to say, it just dawned upon me, I don't actually know the salary of that job. I need to...
You're running the pub.
Yeah, well, this is very true, actually. Yeah, they'll pay me in wine.
They'll pay me... closed down under COVID restrictions.
Yeah, it will. But I'd stock Scotch eggs, though, so I think if I had Scotch eggs, I think I'd be all right, wouldn't I? Anyway, you guys can still... well, you are still getting in touch, should I say. One of you, where is it? Because I just flagged it. I wanted to say thank you. One of you just sent me a picture. I asked about what's on your mind tonight, and you showed me your back garden, which is there it is. Oh no, that's not it. Well, I can't remember your name now, but you know who you are. You've just sent me your picture of your back garden to try and cheer us all up because it is decked out to the hilt in Christmas, and it looks absolutely fantastic. I can't believe. Oh, there you are, Terry. There you go, Terry. Yes, I like it. I love your back garden, and a Merry Christmas to you. But that is all we have got time for. Lots of you getting in touch, by the way, back on the NHS topic about whether or not the NHS is fit for purpose. Yeah, maybe we need to do that as a separate topic another day, because you guys really are getting in touch. But anyway, that is all we've got time for tonight. Thank you very much, panel, for your company. Going to split you two up next time you're on. And thank you at home for getting in touch and joining in the conversation. I will see you tomorrow. Have yourself a great evening. I'll be back at 6 o'clock.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello again. Some brighter skies for some tomorrow before more cloud and rain arrives from the west. However, backtrack to this evening and high pressure still firmly in charge, as it has been for the last week or so. And what that means, calm conditions and a cold night. But it is waning towards the near continent, allowing milder air to come from the west and also bands of rain. And we'll see that as we head through into Christmas Day. For the time being, though, it's cold outside. Holes in the cloud will allow temperatures to plummet. A fairly widespread frost anywhere from Scotland, England and some parts of Wales. Away from Northern Ireland and the West Country, a keen breeze here, more clouds and temperatures holding up. But certainly it's going to be a frosty start to the day come Wednesday morning across many areas, but with some hazy sunshine, so some brighter skies. Through the morning, though, that cloud will eventually bring some rain to Northern Ireland, quite a fresh wind across Irish Sea coast, as the rain slowly pushes up towards the western parts of Scotland, clipping West Wales as well as the West Country. Drier skies to end the day further east, but temperatures will struggle here, 4, 5, 6 degrees Celsius. And through the evening, as the rain pushes across Scotland, it will turn to snow above around 300-400 metres and even some sleetiness at lower levels for a time. As some showers move in across England and Wales, and then more wet weather returns to Northern Ireland through the latter part of Wednesday night and into Thursday morning. However, the key feature of the weather as we head through Thursday, yes, there'll be quite windy in places, outbreaks of rain, but the temperatures will be a few degrees higher, certainly feeling milder across England and Wales and Northern Ireland. Still a lot of rain, though, just grinding to a halt across Scotland, and a keen breeze across the far north as more rain pushes in across Wales and the West Country later, and also that brisk wind. Temperatures here double figures though, so not so bad, although the air will slowly get colder from the north as we head into Christmas, with a chance of some snow showers in the northeast.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the